with an O.
Yes. All right. What's up? So we're gonna speed up the countdown a little bit because we're just gonna do that
because working full-time jobs
yeah
prevents us from checking our calendar.
Yeah, but by all means, if y'all want to send us money,
please,
we'll quit our jobs and do this full time.
I love money. It's one thing I love.
Yeah,
it's money.
All right, so we're gonna just combine a few things here. Team 6, 7, and 8 for this one video. It'll be a little longer than the normal ones, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
sure. Number 8. Boston Bruins. Finished top of the East last year, but
lost in the Eastern semifinals.
Yes,
to the Montreal Canadiens.
Mm-hmm.
The team that I think they could have beat, but I think Boston is kind of tailing off from that Cup team and being so dominant because they were so dominant in they won the President's Trophy, did they not?
Yeah,
and they were so dominant, and I think it went to the style, but it's tough to play that type of hockey all year long and just be successil in the playoffs, and that showed. I mean, they still have a great team. Only problem that I have with them is just that they lost Jarome Iginla, which is people are kind of shrugging that off as like, oh, we lost Jarome Iginla. He put in 30 goals for them.
Yeah, no, it's a big loss, man. Colorado's gain. I'm thinking one of these years he's going to tail off, but mainly Boston just didn't have the money to sign him, to keep him. This is only a 1-year deal last year.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, he would have probably wanted more money. I mean, meanwhile, he probably didn't deserve the money, but I mean, last year you can't base a player who's that old on his last year's because he doesn't have any potential at that point. You know what I mean? He more next year playing on an even better Colorado Avalanche.
I think
team.
so, and I don't know. And again, it might not be the biggest loss in the world, but 30 goals is tough to replace. But clearly, they felt he was expendable.
Still a really good team. Just quickly looking at their roster, I mean, Tuukka Rask, top 3 goalie. I think only behind Henrik Lundqvist and Jonathan Quick at this point. Maybe even topping them depending on
he'll contend for the Vezina again.
Yeah, exactly. Patrice Bergeron, probably the best 2-way center in the game, if not 2-way player as a whole in the game.
Yeah.
Milan Lucic, really good overall.
Really picked it up the last few years.
Yeah, he's finally coming into his own. Probably one of the better all-around players in the game.
Real physical, goal scorer too.
Yeah, exactly. And they still have guys like Marchand. I mean, David Krejci just got the big contract this year, which he deserved. He's the number 1 center on any other team, except for maybe like 2 or 3. Maybe like other than the Blackhawks, something like that. He's the number 1 center, but he does real well. The only problem I have with this team is they just lost Boychuk.
Yeah,
which I think makes the Islanders more of a contender. We already went over that with the Islanders, but they have cap. They have a cap problem, and that's why they got rid of Boychuk.
Yeah.
Only issue, they're very top heavy, and I wonder where this money goes. And I know that Bergeron and Krejci and Rask get a lot of money, but like. I know
Zdeno Chara makes a ton.
Exactly, but I think Zdeno Chara his time is coming on, and I think that was shown in the playoffs because
he's not. He used to be this big physical force where every time he stepped on the ice, you were a little intimidated by him. I don't think that's the case
he never
anymore.
Skated well, and I think he made up for it because he has such a long reach. He's got the biggest. They literally had to make a custom stick in order for him, and he's still a good defenseman. The problem is he doesn't skate well anymore, and he's getting old to begin with. I think he's 37, 38.
Yeah, he's late 30s. He's getting there.
Oh, wow. You are skillful.
That was good.
Good for you. Anyway, that was just my dog walking through the jungle of wires we have here.
Almost lost the whole production.
Yeah. But either way, I think Zdeno Chara has that big shot. I think he's a little overrated to begin with because he gets away with a lot of things, not skating well. And I think Montreal finally exposed him.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams are going to catch on to that. And I think this year might be the last year that we see the dominant Zdeno Chara.
I think so. Again, for everybody, you start to lose it. And this year's going to be no different. We'll see a bunch of guys every year. You can't time wins every time.
I mean, and looking at the roster real quick, I mean, Torrey Krug is going to be a great offensive defenseman, and he's going to come into his own. He's not the best offensive defenseman, but offensively, really good.
He has a good shot.
Riley Smith, a lot of potential there. Louis Erickson is a big question mark on the year because you don't know what you're going to get with him. Sometimes he looks great. Sometimes he doesn't. But, I mean, Dougie Hamilton, I think, is their best potential player they have coming out right now. Going to
Played
be
his junior hockey in St. Catharines.
He's going to be really good regardless. And they're going to have the tough fourth line. It's just a matter at this point if they can get depth scoring because that was a problem. They managed because they were so dominant on defense, but they lose Boychuk. Chara's not what he is. No. So right now you're looking at your number one defenseman being Dennis Seidenberg. And
do better.
And yeah.
But that being said,
they still got a great goalie behind them to back them up. So
of course.
Basically to wrap them up, I think I'm going to say they're going to make the playoffs, obviously. How far they're going to go, I don't know.
They'll win around depending on the matchup. Yeah. Again, the matchups are even toss-ups, man.
Exactly. You don't know who you're going to play.
If you don't win the division, you're playing
tough teams
right there. You're playing the team right next to you in the standings.
Something that I guess looking at what I'd like to see for this team getting better, I think they got to make a move. One in the beginning and then one at trade deadline.
If you can just move some of the money that you have in these guys, if you can somehow move Chara, maybe it's something you don't want to do, but you got to start thinking about it.
Yeah, because I mean that's the big thing with me. I know they have cap issues, and that's why they lost Boychuk.
Yep.
But where is the money? You know what I mean? Because I see the top four guys, but I don't know. So I'd like to see they need to move maybe Louis Erickson or maybe Chara. I mean,
they got to move one of their bigger contracts that's kind of becoming an albatross.
But I mean, and just last thing I'm going to say with them, 3 picks from the Islanders for Boychuk. Good trade on their part, I think.
I think it's good. Look, if you want to analyze trade, it's good for both sides. Garth Snow knows he has to make moves because he needs to get this team to the playoffs to save his own job.
Yep.
And honestly,
he traded away their first round pick for 3 months of Thomas Vanek.
Yeah, there's been worse trades in the world. Right. But
moving on from the Boston Bruins.
Yeah. Number 7.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
The reason they dropped, look, they're still a fantastic team, but Malkin's a question mark going into the season. You don't know when he's going to be healthy. Crosby's the best player in the world. One of top.
He's the best player in the world. I would.
But again, it needs to be said. He's always one hit away from being done because he's had concussion problems. Not lately.
Yeah, no, he's been very. He had his first injury-free season this year, and you see what he does. As people say like, "Oh, I hate Crosby," and we're all guilty of saying, "Oh, we don't like him." But he's the best player in the game right now, offensively. I wouldn't say all-around hockey player, best player. I would probably give that to Jonathan Toews right now, but you cannot argue with Sidney Crosby being the best offensive player in the game. You can't do it. I mean, how many years in a row he's won the Hart Trophy? I mean, even last year when he was hurt, he got hurt, and he still came back and won the Hart Trophy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, yeah, the lockout year.
Exactly. That blows my mind.
Yeah.
But moving on from them, couple key losses.
Yeah, UC Jokinen for them was big for them. I don't know how well he's going to do in Florida, but there's a lot of guys on that team that get the benefit of playing with Crosby and Malkin. I think UC Jokinen was one of them, but he was great on that team.
See,
they lose 2 top defensemen, Brooks Orpik and Matt Niskanen, both signed with the Capitals.
I think they could have lived without Brooks Orpik. But I think Matt Niskanen and losing a combination of both is both because now
either or is fine, but to lose both it's a pretty big hit regardless of what your opinions are on Orpik and Niskanen. But what they still have as their top defenseman, I believe, Paul Martin
played very well in the playoffs. I think he was their leading point getter in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
And I forget who's gonna. I mean,
Oli Mata is a great upside. Probably your number 2 defenseman at the age of 19 and doing quite well. Yeah. Not just somebody who just is there, somebody who actually competed and pushed for that number 1 spot.
Yeah, and of course they signed Christian Ehrhoff for 1 year since Buffalo bought out that awful contract, but he's still really good defender. That's going to make up, at least for this year, the loss of Niskanen.
I mean, I think people they were the problem with their defense, and I think people think they're a little worse off than they actually are. They still have Chris Letang.
Of course.
They have Oli Mata. They have Ross Scuderi. Yeah. They have Christian Ehrhoff. And I think they'll be all right. The problem is just it's one of those cases of it falls off and you had better, but you lost them because of the free agent signing and you can't afford them. Yeah. I understand that. But look, I think they'll be okay in defense. It really will.
Okay, but honestly, every year we go into it, the goaltending. They seem to be fine with Marc-Andre Fleury, and he plays well in spurts. But the problem for the Penguins is not it's the postseason, and that's where Marc-Andre Fleury just does not play well.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those players where he's good enough until a certain point. And he was good enough against the Rangers in those games, those 3 games he won. He was dominant, actually.
And it was downhill.
But look at him, and then look at him in the Blue Jackets series. That team had to bail him out big time because, especially that goal he led up to Nick. Was it Nick Foligno? I don't remember which Foligno's on.
Oh, it's Nick Foligno.
Yeah, Nick Foligno.
Nick Payne's boy.
Yeah, that it's just a wrist shot from the blue line, and he let it in, and he almost blew that series for them.
Yeah.
But another thing, when you have a team with Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang,
you can bail your
Chris Kunitz, who feeds off of
you can
Sidney
bail
Crosby.
you can bail your team out plenty.
Oh, exactly.
But if you put Marc-Andre Fleury on a bad team, that team's even worse.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think he's good enough for now.
But that's a problem. It's like you see these teams like Chicago and Pittsburgh, and they don't have very good goaltenders. And it's
but
like they get by, but it's like they make all these moves to get these fourth line guys. Like, no, why don't you take that money, go out and get yourself an elite goaltender?
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I guess. Well, the Penguins are broke, man. They didn't get out of the second round.
Yeah,
they blew that series to the Rangers.
Blew that. I'm not gonna lie, but what I look for these guys is they're gonna have the depth scoring.
Yeah,
the defense is gonna be fine.
Yeah, and they should have lost to Columbus for all intents and purposes.
I agree completely.
But but realistically, like what is this team? Like obviously, like they have some holes, but is it going to be a big deal?
I don't think it will be. I think they're going to be just fine. They're going to be the Penguins of old. I don't think anything goes wrong, especially with the addition of Patrick Hornquist,
of course,
who's just going to come in and
lost
do great.
James Neal though.
They did lose James Neal, but I think Hornquist is just going to replace James Neal. Looking for one of their younger guys, Bo Bennett, to step into a bigger role. Yeah, Pascal Dupuis is going to be good too. Steve Downey. Yeah. They're going to be fine.
No, look, I know they'll be fine, but it's more again when we're getting to these teams, it's about these top 10 teams. They want to win the cup. It's not let's just get to the playoffs.
I think this team could be a very big threat coming out of the East, as always. Well, yeah. And I kudos to Mario Lemieux for building a great team. And if you're ever going to build, if any franchise in the NHL wants to build the team, this is how you do it. You draft and you draft well and you build through your AHL team. Yeah. But I think they're going to be fine, and I think this team has a very good chance of going to the Cup out of the East. I really do.
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like the East it's really a toss-up in hockey. The team gets hot, and look, whatever we're saying now in early October is going to mean jack shit in April, probably.
Exactly.
But again, the Penguins are what they are. On paper, to me, they look like they'll make it to the second round, and then they're going to lose to a team with better defense and a better goalie, and then they're just going to run into a wall. I don't think they're going to be strong enough. And Crosby, he had his struggles in the playoffs as well.
He did. Yeah, he did. But you know what? That's that
and it happens.
It happens, but I don't think it'll happen again. I'll be completely honest.
I don't think so either. But hey, I think it's got to be said.
Penguins are actually on television. Anyway, moving on from them, I think they're going to be fine.
No, they'll be fine. They'll be top 2 in the East, obviously.
At this point, we're just nitpicking because they have a great team.
Yeah.
Team 6. This might surprise a lot of people.
President's Trophy winner last year. Wasn't it the Ducks? It wasn't the Bruins last year.
Was it?
No,
I don't remember. Either way,
top of the West, whether they won it or not, it's an irrelevant trophy.
The Anaheim Ducks, and we talked about this because we were trying to figure out because we wanted in our top 5 and wanted one East team. These were obviously all the West teams because the West team is Western Conference is so dominant. Yeah. We kind of overlooked how this team has a lot of questions. And they're very dominant up front, but the main problem is their back end is a little iffy, and who's going to be their goalie? That's the big question. Is it going to be Friedrich Anderson?
Excuse me.
God bless. Or is it going to be Johnny Gibson? I think it's going to be Johnny Gibson.
I think so too. But this is why we move the Ducks back from being first in the East to potentially a wild card team getting in the playoffs. The goaltender situation, you cannot go Victor Foss to Frederick Anderson and John Gibson. Maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I mean,
just, look,
it's one of those things that
it's to make it that fast a transition to go, well, we're moving this guy along to no, you're the starter.
Yeah, I think that at this point,
I
they're here almost on a technicality in the sixth spot because the West is so dominant, and we really wanted one East team, and Johnny Gibson is going to be great. I think he's going to be one of the best to ever play the game at the goaltender position because he has that type of potential, but in the next, is he ready now? And then, looking quick at their roster, which I'll pull up right now, they have a lot of scoring up front, and there's no secret to that. They have Getzlaf, Corey Perry, and they just went out inside Ryan Kessler. Say what you will about Danny Heatley, that only makes them.
I don't think that.
I think it only makes them better. He played very well in the preseason.
Good fourth line guy, but he'll play.
They have the potential in Jakob Silfverberg, Devontae Smith-Pelly, but the problem I have with them is their defense is, yes, Cam Fowler is going to be good. Hampus Lindholm has a tremendous upside. And then, but how long is Francois Beauchemin going to be good? How, that's Kyle Stoner. How long is, Sammy Vatanen? Is he ready?
So you're going, and you look at with Getzlaf, the comments Teemu Selanne made, how much can you put into that?
I like Getzlaf, and I think he's like, if you look at him fantasy, I think he's like the third guy on that list.
Yeah,
and that's a lot to do with him being on the line with Corey Perry. And I think Kessler only makes him better, but it's just also this team, and bringing up what Teemu said. I don't think Bruce Boudreau is a good coach. I really don't. Look at the fiasco he did, and he got run out of Washington, and then he came in there and he took the most dominant team out of the West, and he just he laid up a dud against the Kings, and he didn't address the goaltending situation. That's because he was back and forth all year with 4 different guys.
Yeah,
and you need to, at that point you got to say, okay, pick one, and so they're going to score goals, and they're going to win games, and whatever goalie they decide to pick is going to be good. It's just a matter of which goalie are they going with. Yeah. And I think what they need to do is they need to take one of these guys, because Friedrich Anderson is too good to be a backup, and John Gibson is most certainly too good to be a backup.
So you want to trade one of them?
Trade one of them and get a solid top 4 defender. Because I think that's what this one move away.
All right.
Pick your goalie.
Who are you trading? Who are you trading him to? If you know anything off the top of your head.
I don't know right now. Who's looking to make moves? Because you have to see who's looking to make.
What team wants a young unproven goalie and give up a top 4 defenseman is really the question.
I mean that's tough. I mean it's tough to say, but Friedrich Anderson has done well, and he will continue to do well. I mean, you could always look at it, seem like, maybe even like, weird to say, but like maybe Chicago could take him and put him as the backup then, and then
who are you
maybe a team like here's a perfect one right here. Minnesota. Friedrich Anderson. They just let Brizgalov go, so that obviously going with Kemper, and I was up all night crying if I look like I'm tired because Brizgalov has no team to play for. No, and nobody's going to sign him too because nobody wants that publicity. But that is not any of the point. A team like Minnesota, that's perfect. The Chicago thing is like, okay. I mean, they're pretty set on Crawford. Like, that's something I think we would like to see to make them better. But is it possible? Probably not.
Chicago's not trading
exactly
a top 6.
Minnesota is, I think, a perfect spot because you look and you get somebody like Jonas Brodin or Jared Spurgeon, and you bring him in, and that just makes that team much better. And as the Ducks. And if you're gonna go, Johnny Gibson is your future. There's just no way around that.
That's why you traded him. No, you're gonna trade Friedrich Anderson if you trade
exactly.
But if you're the Ducks, do you want? I mean, you might not have a choice, but are you gonna just roll John Gibson out there if you're a team trying to win the cup?
Listen, I've always said this.
Look, John Gibson had a couple good games and he fell apart in the playoffs.
Well, he hadn't got any real action during the season.
I know that,
and that's tough to just throw somebody into the NHL playoffs, especially the second round, not even the first round.
Yeah.
But look, it can be done. And look at Cam Ward. Look what Cam Ward did. Cam Ward came off the bench and just said, "I'm the franchise goaltender. It's me."
Yeah.
And Johnny Gibson, if you can play, you can play. You might need a year to get acclimated, but if you can play, you can play. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, I don't know what they're going to do. And maybe who knows? Maybe Friedrich Anderson realizes, okay, I'm not the franchise, for this.
Well,
So
he's
I'll
not.
take the backup.
John Gibson is.
Exactly. And maybe he says, okay, I'll take about $1.5 million contract for 3 years, and I'll just sit the bench and I'll play when I can.
Yeah.
But right now, I think to this team to be a real contender to get back, they need another defenseman. And I just right now I don't see it.
There's a lot of moves to be made.
And the goalie needs to show something.
Yeah. Yeah, look, we'll see. We'll see in a few months. The trade deadline will be eventually, and we'll see.
Yeah.
That's all we can do is we'll see. But for now, on paper, to recap this little cram together video, the Bruins 8th, the Penguins 7th, the Ducks 6th. Stay tuned. One last video to go. It'll be our top 5.
Yeah, just because we're
recording this on Tuesday, October, the 7th, and the season starts tomorrow. So the 8th.
We're trying to get you guys your hockey news, and you love us, so you're obviously coming to us.
Oh yeah.